the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. This series tied at 2 apiece, obviously. And this has truly been a fascinating series because there have been no wire to wire, no nip and tuck close games from start to finish in this series. This series has been defined by a few quarters that have changed the landscape of each and every game. And obviously, game 3 technically got close down the stretch. It was about 93-92 before Max Strus hit a 3, and that was the end. That was all she wrote for the Miami Heat. But truthfully, no game in the series has just been extremely competitive from start to finish from the scoreboard standpoint. And it's really interesting how these two teams match up because obviously you watch these two teams play and you look on paper, and Boston clearly has more talent. They've got more offensively skilled players. But the Miami Heat, again, what's made them so good this year, obviously they are exceptionally well coached. They play with a tremendous amount of toughness and competitiveness, and they've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of depth. They're a deep team. They don't necessarily rely on one guy. And because of how well coached and how disciplined they are, their physicality is able to shine through. And that's how they've been able to win a couple of these games in this series. But to me, I've always been fascinated by who's the best player in the series, who's the most important player, who's the X factor. And sometimes those questions produce a different answer. And obviously, several guys have made those types of arguments for the Miami Heat. You could say Jimmy Butler, obviously, the 41-point eruption in game 1. But again, as I mentioned with Miami, when you're looking at the best player in the series, the Miami Heat are so balanced. They've got such immense depth on this team that a lot of different guys can shine for them. So I think that there are arguments to be made for a lot of different guys. Just mentioned Jimmy Butler certainly has an argument for who's the most important player in this series. Bam has proven to be extremely critical when he is engaged. You could turn to the Celtics and say Jaylen Brown. But the guy that I'm going with, and I know that this is an unoriginal answer, but truthfully, to me, the most important guy in this series is their best player on the Celtics, Jason Tatum. Absolutely, he has to be their best player in it for them to win this series. Because what we've seen so far, we've got enough of a sample size this postseason to develop a trend. And what the trend has been so far for the Celtics is when Jason Tatum, predominantly when Jason Tatum scores over 30 points, they win. When he scores less than 30 points, they lose. The Celtics have lost 5 games this postseason. In 4 of the 5 losses, Jason Tatum has scored under 30 points. In game 1 against the Heat, scored 29 points. Now, part of that has to do with his inefficiency, which certainly contributes to that total at the end. But he was 2 for 9 for 3 in game 1. Game 3 against Miami, again, just in this series, 10 points on 3 of 14 shooting. You look back at the series against Milwaukee, in game 1 of that series against the Bucks, just 21 points. Game 3 in that series against the Bucks, just 10 points. The only exceptions, meaning the only games in which he has scored under 30 points and they've still won the game for the Boston Celtics, was game 2 against the Miami Heat, in which the entire team just shot the lights out. In game 5 against the Milwaukee Bucks, where he actually scored over 30 points, but they lost. That was that epic 110-107 win. Giannis was looking like Thor. He had blood streaming down the side of his face. And Bobby Portis gave him the putback layup to give him a 3-point lead. But when Jason Tatum is aggressive, when Jason Tatum is in the mindset of wanting to take shots and he's able to execute it at an efficient and a high level, that's when the Celtics are at their best. That's how they're going to win this series, because This is the first time where the Celtics don't have home court advantage. This is the first time where in the final 3 games of the series, 2 of the last 3 games could potentially be in Miami. And they haven't had to deal with that so far because the first 2 rounds against the Nets, the 7 seed, the Bucks, the 3 seed, they were their higher seeded team. They earned the right to play that game 7 potentially at home. That's what they had against Milwaukee. But against the Miami Heat, that's not the case. And when you're playing on the road, it's even more paramount that your star players shine brightly, because we know the axiom in sports that at home your role players have to step up. Obviously your stars have to play well, but it's about your role players stepping up, and on the road your stars have to shine and play lights out. And that's what they're going to need. They're going to need Jason Tatum to erupt like he did in game 6 against Milwaukee for 46 points on the road. They're going to need those types of performances. And so when you're going against this really well-coached Miami Heat team, if Jason Tatum is struggling and he's not able to hit those outside shots or get to the rim and draw personal fouls, well, now the Heat can close in on some of those other shooters for Boston, like a Grant Williams, like a Peyton Pritchard. Al Horford seems to have been kind of non-existent in this series. Robert Williams, he can be an impact player, but again, he's not a real shooter. The Heat will be happy if Robert Williams beats them with 20 points. And we've seen from Miami's side that in game 3, even without Jimmy Butler for the entire second half, they were still able to prevail and pull out and gut out a win. We haven't seen the Boston Celtics be able to win a playoff game this year when Jason Tatum hasn't played well or hasn't played at all. He's played in every single game. But the Celtics have proven, okay, without Marcus Smart, sure, we can win a game. Without Robert Williams, sure, we can win a game. Can they do it without Jason Tatum? I don't see that happening. And so I think he is absolutely critical to this team's success. And you look at his numbers and you're saying, well, Jonah, I'm sure it's just a matter of if he hits the 3-point shot. Well, in this postseason, he's been shooting the 3-point shot, or pardon, not in the postseason, in this series against Miami in the first 4 games, he's shooting the 3 at a 29% clip. Now, the last 2 games, he's been 1 for 7 in each of those games from 3. Yet one game they won, one game they lost. So it's not simply a matter of can he hit the outside shot, but it's his total field goal efficiency. How aggressive is he? How many shots is he getting up? Is he waiting for the second quarter to try and rev up, or is he aggressive from the opening tip in the first quarter? So that's what the Celtics need, and that's why, to me, I think he's the most important player in this series. And it's going to be fascinating. Obviously, tonight is game 5. This is kind of, I don't want to say one of those do or die games, but obviously if you're the Celtics, you have a great opportunity tonight to snatch game 5 with the Heat kind of banged up. Jimmy Butler with knee inflammation, who knows how he's going to play. I'm sure Tyler Hero will play. Kyle Lowry, he's in the lineup one game, he's out the next, so who knows. But game 5 might determine this thing. But it's going to be fascinating. But again, I think Jason Tatum overall is the most important player in this series. I really do feel that way.